All right, so we're gonna talk about the pulling motion. Every punch is a pull. You're pulling it from behind you, or you're pulling it from the opposite direction that the punch is going. So when you're throwing a straight, your punch comes from back there, right? I'm pulling it. When you're throwing a jab, you're even pulling that. Lead foot pulling you forward. When you're throwing a lead hook, you're pulling it from the left to the right. If you're throwing a right hook, you're pulling it from the right to the left. And it's universal. When you're throwing an uppercut, you're like ripping it out of the ground. Now, with that, there's some reasons why we do this. Number one, integrating more muscle groups. You ever watch those strongman competitions? When they're like moving buses or they're moving like battleships, they don't push them, they pull them. It's because you can integrate more muscle groups in the body together, get them to function together. Number two, you're integrating the dimensions of power generation, right? Remember that shift from left to right, lift up and down, and rotation. It's much easier to rotate as a pull. You're pulling around, and that's a big part of how you generate power. Number three, over-rotation and contrary motion. So you over-rotate to facilitate the next punch. Why? Because you need acceleration room. And people are gonna say, oh, you're gonna telegraph. All right, well, here's the thing. If you're throwing your punches, you can throw a combination. You should be throwing combinations anyway. But like when you're throwing more than one punch, while you're hitting them with the preceding punch, right? When I'm here, I've pulled my left shoulder back. It didn't take any more time, and it didn't have any more telegraph than if I just normally threw the two, because I can go bang, or I can go bang. I can do either one. And so the people that think about punches in isolation are usually the ones that don't train it, or the ones that have very limited experience. So, contrary motion is using each punch to facilitate the next punch. If you change your combinations up and you do all those things that we talked about, how you make each combination feel differently, you're gonna create a much better series of combinations. All right, and that's me right there talking about eliminating the telegraph, right? When you throw an uppercut, if you just drop straight down and you throw your uppercut from here, bang, you're not telegraphing, because I can throw any punch. What punch am I gonna throw right now? You have no idea, right? Because this is my same boxing stance, just you know I'm gonna go to the body. Or I'm gonna lift and come up to the head. All right. Smoother movement explosivity. You ever use resistance bands? If you use resistance bands, what does that give you? Explosiveness, right? So that's why you use that equipment for that task. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do our footwork drill, but what I want you to do is while you're stepping in one direction, I want you to over-rotate to practice that motion. So let's say you throw a two and you step to the left. Bang, right? In that two, I want you to focus on this. What did I do?
You rotated.
I rotated. So it's like 1, 2, get myself nice and primed, hold it if you need to, and then I want you to practice that, ripping through that shot with as much acceleration room as possible. All right, give it a whirl. All right, so you guys might be wondering, why do we practice this over rotation? So here's the thing. So what you guys were doing was doing what you would normally do, just to a greater amplitude, right? It's gonna be slower, it's gonna be more telegraphy, whatever. It's because I'm not trying to get you to do those things the way you would do them in a fight. I'm trying to get you to do them with a much greater amplitude. And that's just because motor learning happens that way, right? The more you can exaggerate the thing and practice it in the ideal and optimum circumstances, the better it's gonna come out when you have to reduce your amplitude for the purpose of speed of execution. Does that make sense? All right, so increase sensory feedback to enhance motor learning. That's what we just covered. Next, the punches are rarely thrown in isolation, so it replicates using the motion of previous punches to augment follow-on punches, right? So you're using every one of these movements across the center line or to varying degrees on either side of the center line to get your punches to augment each other. Number three, it's easier to scale down amplitude in real world execution than it is to ramp it up. If I get you to practice doing it more than you would do it in real life, that means when you do it in real life, it's gonna come out better, right? That's why I always focus on being concise with the punches. You're not gonna throw your punches like this. That's not gonna happen. But if I get you to practice it, now you're working on consistency of precision. Number 4, committing weight shifts at max capacity allows for punching on the move. So when you focus on putting your weight into the movement of your feet, every time you step, you're gonna put more power into every punch that you're throwing while you're on the move. And if you ever read, what was that guy's name? Not Jack Dempsey. Anyway, a book that was written by one of the old school heavyweights. He always talks about falling into your punches. That's what he was talking about. And lastly, the principle of punching with the elbow. Every single punch comes from your elbow. And what do I mean by that? You're not actually hitting somebody with the fist. You're focusing on hitting them with the elbow. It just turns out that your fist gets in the way. You know, that's the reason that I teach my hooks like this is it protects your too fragile metacarpals, but it also helps you get the emphasis of making as many straight lines as possible so that you're loading your bones rather than your muscles throughout the execution of the punch. So focusing on that, whether it's throwing your uppercut or throwing your hook or even your straight, if you think about the punch being the elbow hitting the target, then it's gonna make you focus on having straight lines. Does that make sense? Yeah. All right, good work.